Estelle, this is Fabi, and I thought that it would be probably a little bit easier for me to try to explain this process to you about stitch files and object files if I made a video for you. So what we're going to do is I've got my MBX version 5 open. I have selected your brand of machine, which is the Janome MemoryCraft 11,000, and I have chosen the square hoop. I'm going to come up to my toolbar up here, and I'm navigating to the folder where I saved the designs that you sent me today, which was this number 2 Marshall Angel Wing and another Marshall Angel Wing. Both of these files that you sent me are considered to be EMB files, which means that when I open them up, I'm going to expect to see these files showing on my screen and in my sequence bar as objects. All right, so I'm just going to open the first one that's here. Let's see what we actually see when we open it up. All right, so here it is on screen, and I can see that it's a very pretty design. Some free, probably what I'm considering. This is maybe freestanding lace. I haven't looked at it that closely to know whether or not it is, but knowing you and knowing how you like to make lace, I'm assuming it is a lace design, which you have personalized with someone special's name and the years of their life on it. So over here in the sequence bar, when I click on this sequence bar and I change where it says objects right here, I want to see the objects. Now this is where I'm going to tell you, I'm going to see that I can tell something that you have done to this design. All right, what I would expect to see here is everything in this design having a symbol similar to something like this. This is an indication to me that this is an object file that was created in one of the Wilcom software programs like MBX. All right, but what I'm seeing, Estelle, is I'm seeing a mixture. A little while ago, I sent you an email and I called this a Frankenstein mixture of designs. It's a whole mixture. These here are stitches. They're stitches. They are not objects. This is an object. What we're looking at here is a design that I can tell you, I know what you did with this. You bought a design or you got it as a built-in design, maybe on the software or from somewhere. And what you did with it is it probably came to you as a Jeff design, and you brought it into your program and you added in the lettering using the lettering toolbox. I know that because if I scroll on down through all of these objects, I can see here the lettering that you created using the lettering toolbox in the software program. These are original MBX objects. They are EMB objects. All of this other stuff is a mixture of EMB objects and stitch files that were originally Jeff stitch files. The reason that it got to be that way was because you opened this design, you modified it with whatever you wanted to add in here. Maybe you even added in that flower bouquet. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter because what you did once you added in all of these embroidered objects, take a look at that actually, now that I'm looking at it. No, I don't know where these came from. Anyway, that's beside the point. What you did is you had this combination of a Jeff design and an MBX design. And what you did with it is in the output toolbox, or maybe up here in the file toolbox, you can use either place. I tend to use the output one more. I don't have any personal reason why I do. I just do. What you did is you came over here and you saved this design. And when you save that design, it saves as an EMB. If you were to actually select this, this is beside the point actually, but just to clarify some things, if you click the arrow here, there's other versions of EMB that you can save, and you can even save it as far back as the Jan versions. All right, but anyway, you saved a Jeff file. And when you saved that Jeff file, it did this to it. It tried to read those Jeff stitches. I'm going to cancel because I don't want to save this. What it did is it read all of these Jeff stitches and it tried to convert them. And it was successful at converting some things and it was not so successful at converting other things. So what do you do about it? Well, first of all, what I probably would tell you to do is hopefully you still have the original Jeff file that you got from somewhere and you have not contaminated it by saving it as an EMB. So that would be the number one thing, which is also one of the reasons why we rename our files when we save them, is so that we can keep different versions. But let's back up one step. One thing that will actually help you to preserve your original files that you purchased is that if you come up into the software settings, embroidery settings, over here under the design tab, if you leave, you need to keep this selected almost all the time, because if you're using stitch files that you have purchased from somewhere, they are stitches. They are not objects. So you need to have this selected, that you're going to leave those stitches as individual stitches, because if you don't have that selected and you have this one selected instead, what the program is going to do every single time that you open a Jeff design or a DST design or a PES or whatever brand, it's going to look at that design and it's going to try to convert all of those purchased stitches into objects. And when it does that, you're going to get this kind of a mixture of stuff going on. All right, so number one, in your embroidery settings for your design, always keep this selected, unless you get really, really good at editing stitch files and you might want to actually start working with converting some of those stitches into objects sometime in the future. All right, say okay and make sure that you leave that like it is to preserve those Jeff stitches so that the program doesn't try to read them and try to do things to them as it's interpreting what it is. All right, so I just really wanted to make that clear. This file, in order for your sewing machine to see it and stitch it out, and that's where we started at today. You had that design, you sent it to me as an EMB, and your complaint was that your machine couldn't read them. Reason why is your machine can only read a stitch file. It can't read an object file. So the process is once you've opened up a stitch file as a stitch file, and you have personalized it with some embroidered objects that you have created here in the program, you now have created a Frankenstein. It's a mixture, just like it is over here, other than it probably wouldn't look quite as mixed up. In a little while, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a Jeff file from somewhere, and I'm going to make some personalized things on it so that you can see the difference. But here's your pretty design. You have personalized it. You've got it in a hoop for your machine, and you want to stitch it out. Lovely. Come on over here to your output design, and you are going to export this. When you export the design, the whole thing is going to be saved as a big bunch of Jeff stitches. Or if you're sending this design to somebody else that stitches on a different brand of machine, you would have clicked on that arrow and you would have chosen the brand of machine and the format that that machine would read. All right, so this is to Marshall. I already saved it a little while ago as a Jeff because I sent it to you after I converted it to a Jeff for you. So it's right here. And I don't really need to export it again, but I think I'm going to just for the sake of the video. I get the message that says that it already exists and do I want to replace it? And I'm going to say yes because I haven't made any changes to it since this morning. It's still the same original file that you sent me, now converted into stitches. Ready to stitch. You could actually have exported this design directly to your USB. That's not what we're going to talk about right now. All right, so hopefully that's clear to you. All right, so what if you want to save just the letters of the name and the years of Marshall's life? It's very easy. You can also actually do a couple of different things to it. You could come over here to your sequence bar, and what you could do is you could delete everything else. I think this design is grouped. Yeah, I could delete it and all I've got left is the Marshall. And you could save Marshall's name and his years in a couple of different ways. If you ever wanted to use this again and you wanted it in the exact same spot on top of those angel wings, you could actually leave this in this spot right here on the screen. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to save it or are you going to export it? Well, if you want to save it because you plan to alter it sometime in the future, maybe you might want to choose a different font or something, and you don't want to type in the whole thing again, then I would save it. You would save this design as Marshall's name, and you would be saving it as an EMB. Okay? Save. All right. Or if you wanted to save this as a stitch file so that you might want to pop it on top of something else, another design somewhere, you would export that design as a stitch file. Okay? You might possibly want to put this thing in the middle of the hoop rather than having it over here on the side. And if I were to do that, I just selected it by drawing a box around it with my mouse. And I would come up to the layout toolbox. And I would just come on down here to auto center to the work area. You can see a little shadow has appeared in the center of the hoop. I just hit enter and now it's centered in the middle of the hoop. And that's probably the way that if I was going to save this, I would output this design, either exporting it as a stitch file or saving it as an object file in the middle of the hoop. Okay, you could even have changed the hoop size up here if you wanted to do that. All right, so let's go into part 2 of this tutorial. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to come up to open a file. I'm going to come somewhere in my embroidery stuff. I hadn't really planned this part, so I don't have anything in mind. I'm going to come to my freestanding lace folder. Maybe there's something in here that I might want. Oh, let me go ahead and select. I want a Jeff design. Oh, maybe not that design. Let's see. I have no idea what I'm going to find here. You know what? These bells were bells that you and I actually worked with some of these bells similar in the past. I think this is the one that we worked with before. Yeah, I think it is. Remember that last year? So I'm opening up a stitch file. All right, it's a Jeff design. If I come over here to my sequence bar and I select the objects so that I see them come up as little pieces, I want to try to get this bar over. Not that one. This is the one I want to see. We're going to see that, see this now? Everything here is a stitch. We don't see any of that Frankenstein kind of stuff that we were looking at a little while ago on your design. You know, your design over here was this whole mixture. If I need to remind you, you had a mixture of objects and you had a mixture of stitches. This one here, because I opened it up as a stitch file, is nothing but stitches. All right, so that would be the difference in what I would want to do now if I wanted to personalize this little bell, is that I could go ahead and I could come up to my lettering toolbar and I could select lettering. And let's get this to scoot over. And I would just maybe write in letter F for myself. There it is right there. It's teeny weeny. Let me pick a different font. And let me make it a little bit bigger. Probably center it a little bit further down or something like that. All right, so what's happened here is I have now added in an object into an existing stitch file. So down here, let me go ahead and change the color of this just to demonstrate a little tacky orange. So now when we look at our sequence bar and we get to look at all the different objects that are here, we're going to see at the very bottom here, we're going to see that symbol once again that this is an object file. So what am I going to do with mine? I'm going to come over to the output design. I don't see a need for me to save this design at all. The reason why is because the only thing that's on here that is an object, a true EMB object, is this simple little letter F. So I don't need to try to allow this program to turn this into a Frankenstein. All I need to do is I just need to export this design. And again, you know, I would just find my place somewhere on my computer where I wanted to save it, or I knew I was going to find it once again. And I'm just going to call it Bell. Probably won't even save this later. Make sure the format is what I want to save it at, and I will save it. All right, it's not saving. I'm using the word save because that's what's on here. I'm saving a Jeff file, but I'm doing it as an export. Okay, the Microsoft Windows programs, when we are putting things into our computer, I'm going to try not to use the word save, when we are putting things into our computer that are going to be left there so that we can find them once again. Yes, that process is that we are saving a design, or we are saving some instructions or something like that. So that's the language that's used, not to be confused with how we're outputting an embroidery design. I'll have to say it again. We're going to save designs that are true EMB designs. We are going to export designs that are stitches, stitch designs like Jeff. But when we're in this little process here, yes, we do have to unfortunately use the word save. All right, so that's that. I hope that all of this is beginning to become clearer and clearer to you the more that you and I talk, and as I try to help you learn how to use your program. Just know I'm always happy to try to help you, and I don't want to confuse you, but the more you use this and the more you think about the difference between objects and stitches, the more it's going to make sense to you. So just to review that again, what we have over here with your pretty angel wings is we've got a Frankenstein of a mixture, because at some point during its lifespan of those pretty wings, you saved a stitch file. That's why that's like it is. Okay, I'm hoping this is helping you. And anyway, just let me know if you need more help. Bye for now.